In the golden age of Athens, when the Parthenon stood new and gleaming under the Attic sun, the city was a cauldron of democracy, art, and intellectual fire. Through its bustling agora, a marketplace of goods, politics, and ideas, walked a man unlike any other. He was Socrates. He was not handsome. He had a snub nose, bulging eyes, and walked barefoot, his robes simple and worn. He was not a wealthy aristocrat or a powerful politician. He was a stonemason by trade, but his true vocation was that of a gadfly, sent, as he claimed, by the gods to sting the lazy horse of Athens into action. While other teachers, the sophists, charged exorbitant fees to teach the sons of the rich how to win arguments, Socrates sought no payment. His method was different. He did not lecture, he questioned. He would find the most celebrated general and ask, "What is courage?" He would stop a respected politician and ask, "What is justice?" With relentless, surgical inquiry, he would peel back the layers of their confident answers, revealing that the men who claimed to know the most, in fact, knew very little. His own wisdom, he professed, came from a single realization: I know that I know nothing. This Socratic method was infuriating to the powerful, but it was electric to the youth of Athens, who flocked to him eager to learn how to truly think. But this relentless pursuit of truth made him dangerous enemies. Athens had just emerged from the brutal Peloponnesian War and a short, terrifying reign of terror by the 30 tyrants. The city was raw, paranoid, and desperate for stability. Socrates' constant questioning felt, to some, like a destabilizing force. 3 men, Meletus, a poet, Anytus, a politician, and Lyco, an orator, brought formal charges against him, corrupting the youth and impiety, disbelieving in the city's gods. The trial was a spectacle. Socrates, then 70 years old, stood before a jury of 500 of his fellow citizens. He did not beg for his life. He did not weep or bring his children to plead for sympathy. Instead, he gave his apology, not an apology in our sense, but a powerful defense of his life and his philosophy. He explained his mission as a divine one, to force Athenians to examine their own lives, for the unexamined life is not worth living. He told them he was their gadfly, and that in killing him, they would harm themselves more than they harmed him, for they would be silencing the voice that urged them toward virtue. The jury, angered by his seeming arrogance and swayed by his enemies, found him guilty by a narrow margin. The prosecution proposed the penalty, death. By Athenian law, Socrates was allowed to propose a counterpenalty. This was his chance to save himself. His friends urged him to suggest exile or a heavy fine. Instead, Socrates, in a final act of philosophical integrity, stated that since he had only ever benefited the city, his just reward should be free meals for life in the Prytaneum, an honor reserved for Olympic champions. The jury was enraged by this. In the second vote, to decide the penalty, they condemned him to death by a much wider margin. He was to die by drinking a cup of poison, hemlock. Because of a religious festival, his execution was delayed for several weeks. He was kept in a state prison, where his devoted friends and students visited him daily. They were heartbroken, but Socrates himself was serene. One morning, just before dawn, his wealthy friend Crito came to him with a detailed escape plan. The guards were bribed, a ship was waiting, and a safe exile was secured. "Socrates," Crito pleaded, "you must live. What will people say of us, your friends, if we let you die? Think of your sons." Socrates listened patiently, then gently began to question his friend. He spoke of his social contract with Athens. The city's laws had raised him, educated him, and protected him. Would it be right, now that he disagreed with one unjust verdict, to break all the laws and flee? To do so, he argued, would be to destroy his life's work. He had lived his whole life in obedience to principle and truth. He would not abandon them in death. He chose to obey the law, even when the law was wrong. Crito was silenced, weeping, but understood. Socrates would not run. On his final day, his friends gathered in the cell. The atmosphere was thick with sorrow, yet Socrates was luminous, engaging them in a final, brilliant dialogue about the immortality of the soul. He offered them comfort, arguing that a true philosopher should not fear death, but see it as the liberation of the soul from the prison of the body. As the sun began to set, the jailer, who had come to respect Socrates, entered the room, weeping. "You are the noblest and gentlest man ever to have entered this place," he said, before giving the order. A cup containing the ground hemlock was brought. Socrates took it without trembling. He uttered a simple prayer and, with absolute calmness, drained the cup. His friends, who had held back their tears, now broke down in loud sobs. Socrates gently chided them. "What is this strange outcry? I have heard that a man should die in peace. Be quiet and have patience." He was instructed to walk around the cell until his legs felt heavy. He did so, then lay down on his cot. The jailer approached, pinching his foot to see if he could feel it. The cold numbness was creeping up his body. He was covered, and just before the poison reached his heart, he uncovered his face for a final moment. He looked at Crito and spoke his last words. "Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Please, pay it and do not forget." It was a strange final request, a simple debt to the god of healing. Perhaps Socrates meant that death was the cure for life, the final healing of the soul. Then he was still. The city of Athens had murdered its wisest citizen. But in doing so, they had not silenced him. The body was dead, but the eternal voice of truth was unleashed. His student, Plato, would preserve that voice forever in his timeless dialogues, ensuring that Socrates' questions would challenge and inspire humanity for millennia. The cup of poison did not mark an end. It marked the beginning of true Western philosophy, a legacy built on courage, integrity, and the unending search for truth.